The ballroom was alive with glittering gowns and polished shoes, but Ethan Stone barely noticed any of it. As CEO of one of the country's largest companies, he had attended hundreds of charity galas, and to him, they all blurred together into a parade of polite handshakes and rehearsed smiles. Tonight felt no different, until his gaze caught on something unexpected. Across the room, near a children's art corner set up for the event, a little girl sat hunched over a canvas, her small hands covered in bright splashes of blue and yellow paint. She tilted her head as she worked, a soft hum escaping her lips. Then she looked up and laughed at something one of the volunteers said, and Ethan felt his chest tighten. That smile, wide, unguarded, and marked with a dimple on her left cheek, was his own. He'd seen it in the mirror 1,000 times. For a moment, the noise of the gala disappeared. He stood frozen, unable to explain the strange pull in his heart. The girl couldn't have been more than 6, and yet something about her felt hauntingly familiar. She brushed a lock of hair from her face, revealing eyes that shone with the same curious spark he remembered from long ago. A flicker of memory returned, one night, 6 years earlier, with a woman he could never forget. His pulse quickened as a thought, wild and impossible, surged to the surface. Could this child, this laughing, paint-streaked little girl, be his? The memory hit him like a tide he had long tried to hold back. 6 years ago, he had attended a masquerade gala not unlike this one, though that night had been anything but ordinary. Amid the sea of glittering jewels and designer gowns, there had been a woman who stood out, not because of wealth or prestige, but because of her simplicity. She wore a pale blue dress, modest yet breathtaking, and her mask couldn't hide the warmth in her eyes. Unlike the socialites who circled him for favors, she spoke with sincerity, asking nothing of him. They shared a corner of the ballroom, laughing about the absurdity of the night, talking about dreams rather than deals. For once, he wasn't a CEO, he was just a man who wanted to be seen for more than his name. When the orchestra swelled, he had asked her to dance, and it had felt like stepping into another life. The world outside faded, and for one night, he belonged somewhere, someone, with no strings attached. Later, in the quiet hours before dawn, they had walked beneath the city lights, and in her presence he found a rare peace. But as morning crept in, she was gone. No name, no number, only a lingering memory of a woman who had shown him kindness without expectation. He had searched, but the city swallowed her like a secret. Until now. And as he stared at the little girl's dimpled smile, the impossible connection between past and present began to form. Ethan couldn't shake the image of the little girl, so he made discreet inquiries. What he discovered tugged at him more deeply than any business victory ever had. Her name was Lily, and she lived with her mother, Grace, in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. Grace worked long hours at a local shelter, not for wealth or recognition, but simply to keep food on the table and to give her daughter the kind of upbringing that money alone could never buy. One afternoon, Ethan found himself at the shelter, standing quietly in the corner as he watched Lily move among the other children. She wasn't just painting or playing for herself, she was comforting a younger boy who had dropped his toy, offering him hers with a smile. She shared her snacks without hesitation, her laughter filling the room with a light that felt almost too pure for the world. It was a scene so simple, yet it humbled him more than any boardroom negotiation ever had. Grace was there too, her face weary but gentle, guiding children with patience and warmth. Ethan realized with a pang that while he had spent years building towers of glass and steel, this woman had been quietly building something stronger: resilience, kindness, and hope. The guilt pressed on him. If Lily truly was his daughter, he had missed the small, tender moments that shaped her spirit. And yet, beneath the guilt, something else stirred: admiration, and the faintest spark of longing to belong to this world of theirs. His heart pounded as he finally gathered the courage to approach her. Grace was tidying up paints at the shelter when Ethan's shadow fell across the table. She looked up, her eyes widening, recognition flickering like a candle between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, with a trembling breath, Ethan whispered the words that had been haunting him since that night at the gala: "Grace, is Lily mine? Grace's hand stilled, her shoulders tightening. She had always known this day might come, though she prayed it never would. After a pause heavy with unspoken history, she nodded faintly. Yes. But I never wanted your fortune, Ethan. I only wanted her to grow up surrounded by love, not headlines. Her voice was steady, though her eyes betrayed the battles she had fought alone. Ethan's throat tightened, and before he knew it, he was on one knee before the little girl, his polished suit forgotten in the dust of the shelter floor. Lily's wide eyes met his, curious and innocent. His voice cracked as he spoke, softer than he had ever been in his life. I don't want to change who you are. I don't want to take you away. I just want to be part of your world. Not as a CEO, not as a name in the papers, just as your dad. Grace's eyes glistened, torn between fear and hope. Lily tilted her head, studying him for a heartbeat, then placed her tiny, paint-stained hand in his. In that fragile touch, Ethan felt his world shift forever. The days that followed were unlike anything Ethan had ever known. Instead of chauffeured cars and boardroom meetings, he found himself walking into the shelter with paint-splattered jeans, a stack of donated books under one arm, and Lily racing to greet him. At first, he thought his role would be to provide, funding repairs, stocking the pantry, expanding the programs. But it quickly became clear that what mattered most wasn't his money, it was his presence. He sat cross-legged on the floor reading bedtime stories to children who had never known a father's voice. He ladled soup side by side with Grace, listening as she shared the stories of families who came through the shelter doors. And every evening, Lily tugged his hand toward the art table, demanding he mix colors with her until the world around them faded into laughter and brushstrokes. One night, as they packed away supplies, Lily looked up at him with her dimpled smile and said, "Mom says kindness makes you rich. Does that mean we're the richest now?" Ethan swallowed hard, glancing at Grace, who stood watching with quiet pride. He nodded, his voice thick but sure. "Yes, sweetheart. Richer than I ever dreamed." In that moment, he understood, true wealth wasn't measured in skyscrapers or bank accounts, but in the lives we touch, the love we give, and the hope we help build. And as Lily slipped her small hand into his, Ethan knew he had finally stepped into the only role that truly mattered, being her father.